Well, hello, everybody. You're all muted. So when it's your turn to talk, just go ahead and unmute. Man, people are flying in today.
Hi,
This is
John.
good. All right, I think we're on Facebook Live, so that should be working. All right, I will ring my bell and call the meeting to order. Derek, you've got the invocation and pledge.
Yes, are there any prayer requests today? Okay, well, let's go ahead and pray. Father God, I just praise and thank you, Lord, so much for this club. Lord, I thank you for the incredible work that each and every one of our members do. And I thank you for the opportunity each and every day, Lord, to put service above self, Lord, to practice the servant leadership that you demonstrated for us all. And God, I just pray as we get ready to head into the holiday season, Lord, there's so much going on in our world, Lord, but I just pray that we would all be able to experience the peace that you offer to us this Christmas season and every season, Lord. And God, I just thank you so much again, just for the opportunity to be surrounded with incredible people in this group together. And Lord, I just pray a special blessing upon our Rotary Club and each of our members. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. Will you join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thanks, Derek. Aimee, you've got our music or four-way test this afternoon.
Yes. Please join me in the four-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Awesome. Thank you, Aimee. I know you'll be speaking to us a little bit later. Dave Frost was scheduled for the Sergeant at Arms, but he is unfortunately not going to be able to make it today. So Rita, I believe you were on. You want to give us that?
Thank you. Okay, thank you, John. Our attendance last week at our November 30th meeting was 45 in total on Zoom. We had 44 Rotarians and our guest speaker. Next week's speaker will be the gift of organ donation presented by Mary Jane Milano. She is the Community Development Manager for the Finger Lakes Owner Recovery Network. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Rita. Before we get into fellowship, hey, Fitz, I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Okay.
Concerning, I guess, open discussion about future meetings, anything new from the governor's office, or is it safe to say we're probably going to be on Zoom for the near future?
I don't know, other than I can tell you this: the governor just called a news conference 10 minutes ago for 2 o'clock. We have no idea what he's talking about, but it's coronavirus related. So it'll be interesting to see what he says at 2 o'clock today. I don't know, again, if it's about hospitalizations or if it's more orders or more concerns or the numbers are bad, but he did call. He had been on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but he just called a Monday 2 o'clock news conference today. So I still have a feeling, I felt this way a few weeks ago, that we wouldn't be seeing each other in person until January. That's the feeling I have, that we can't get together with the current landscape and the current orders that are on the books, and according to what Mr. Witter said to us, so.
Okay, well, thanks, Fitz. So for everyone else, we do have a speaker for next week, so we'll be on Zoom. The 21st was going to be our Christmas party. I'm going to put that at a 40% chance of happening right now, but that is not official. We'll get word out by email probably by the end of the week. So make a call on that.
Yes, the board's meeting tomorrow. So, right.
So after tomorrow, we may have an answer. So,
Right.
good points. All right. All right, Berlin, without any further ado, let's get some fellowship. What do you got for us today?
Well, good afternoon, everybody. We're going to take a little dive into this date in history. I'm going to try to share my screen here. So December 7th, obviously in the United States National Remembrance Day, the date that will live in infamy. We'd be really remiss if we didn't start with remembering Pearl Harbor today, December 7th, 1941, the date that has lived in infamy, certainly in this country, if not across the entire planet. The good news is, though, it's not the only thing that's happened on December 7th. So let's take a look at some other things. 1787, Delaware became the first state to ratify the United States Constitution. In 1808, James Madison was elected 4th President of the United States. And then a few years later, in 1836, Martin Van Buren was elected the 8th President of the United States. Just think if we all had an entire extra month for political campaigns and political advertisements, how much fun would that have been this year? Probably one of the neatest things on here, because I'm certainly a music lover myself, and trying to make the transition in today's theme of happiness. In 1842, the very first Philharmonic in the United States, the New York Philharmonic, debuted. And I had a typo there. I apologize for that. Didn't catch that. 1868, Jesse James Gang robs its first bank in Missouri. A lot of baseball fans amongst the Rotarians out there. Before we get to that, though, a little Ohio history. 1877, Thomas Edison introduced his phonograph to the world by showing it off to the editors of Scientific American. In 1909, chemist and inventor Leo Baekeland patented Bakelite, the very first thermoplastic, sparking the birth of an entire industry, the plastic industry. And for the baseball fans, in 1937, Boston Red Sox signed Ted Williams, arguably one of the best signings in the history of Major League Baseball. In 1939, Lou Gehrig was elected to the Hall of Fame. And most importantly, maybe the most favorite thing about December 7th for me personally, being a big Trekkie, is that it was on this date in 1979 that Star Trek the Motion Picture debuted. Arguably the happiest thing to have ever happened on December 7th. And that's it.
All right. Thanks, Berlin. Announcements, just real quick. We did do the bell ringing on Saturday. I was at the mall indoors, so I always like that one. Joe, I don't know if Joe's on, if he had an update for us. At least from my perspective, standing in front of Macy's, there were quite a few shoppers out there, more than I expected. The mall was fairly crowded. And we got a bunch of people that dropped in 5s, 10s, 20s. It was interesting. I was a little worried about turnout this year. I talked to Paul Downing a little bit. He said the turnout's been good overall. I don't know what the totals are going to be yet, but hopefully Joe can get us that by next week. But thanks to all who did ring the bells. It's always a good time. And we did keep our masks on the whole time, except for when I had coffee. And then this week we've got the Christmas party, special needs Christmas party. Teresa, I don't know if you or Esther wanted to make any last minute pleas, anything we need to change, anything the club might need to know before the party.
I didn't see if Esther's on. If she's on, I'll let her speak. Maybe she's not.
Sorry about
I
that.
don't think.
Yeah, I think we're good. We've got about 12 people that I expect to show up at the school, about 23 kids. And so I think we're good to go. if anyone has a chance to get festive masks for the Rotarians that are working that would be good. I'm not allowed out of my house until Saturday, so so I can't do it, even though I had promised. But it should be a good time.
All right, great. Thanks, Teresa. Thanks, Esther.
Esther, this is Carl. Normally you send out the ages and the sex of the children and what they want. Are you going to do that?
Yes, I have done that. And I will I'll send a chat message about yours.
Thank you.
Okay.
Quick
And that
question,
go ahead.
do we just drop the gifts off at Miramore before the end of the week?
Yes, Miramore School between 8 and 4 p.m. during the week, or will be open by 8 o'clock on Saturday, and they would have to be there by 9.
If you have trouble getting it to us, I could send somebody out to you too. Just let me know. Send me an email.
All right. And then in the e-book, also you may have seen that we are trying to get hats, gloves, and socks for Salvation Army. I did stop at Old Navy after my bell ring this weekend, and they have a huge sale. So I went a little nuts in there. So I got a big bag. If anybody else has some, I can pick it up from you and take it to Salvation Army, or you can drop it off at their offices also. Last reminder, I think December, by the end of this week, if you've got hygiene items for the food bank, please drop those off. Those barrels will be out there at the entrance until Friday. Birthdays this week: got Cliff Barber on December 8th, Paul Swartz on December 9th, and Steve Caton on December 12th. That's birthdays for the week. And that's all I've got. Unless somebody else has any announcements, I will turn it over to Beth to introduce our speaker for today.
Yes, thank you very much, John. Today, we are talking about happiness in the workplace, and our speaker is our own member, Aimee Booker. Aimee is the CEO and founder of Harrison Latham. Harrison Latham is a group of world-class coaches and consultants focusing on creating happier workplaces. Aimee is an international best-selling author, professional speaker, and an International Coach Federation certified coach. She holds degrees from Miami University and the Ohio State University. She is certified in emotional intelligence, predictive index, performance gap indicator, and energy leadership. She has worked with a wide range of organizations, from single-person startups to established Fortune 500 companies, as well as educational institutions and nonprofits. Aimee is a classically trained pianist. She is the mother of 4 amazing kids that range in age between 12 and 21. She is a professional actress and founder of the improv group #SorryNotSorry. So it is my great pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Aimee. Take it away.
Thanks so much, Beth. Here, I'm going to share my screen if I can. Computers are not cooperating with me. All right. So what actually happens when a company focuses on employee happiness, and why does happiness even matter in business? So let's imagine a scenario we all know. Picture walking into work on a typical Monday morning. What's the general mood? Likely everyone is tired. They enjoyed their weekend, they're dreading the work week, probably feeling a little stressed. Maybe you know how many emails are waiting in your inbox and you're feeling like you're already behind for the week. In most organizations, Monday morning is not typically a happy time. Now, if you'll indulge me, let's imagine this scenario again, but let's change it up a bit. You walk into work on a Monday morning and every person, including you, is genuinely happy to be there. Every person is excited about the work they're going to get to do that day, and everyone is looking forward to seeing and interacting with their colleagues. Imagine if Mondays at 8 a.m. had the same happy energy as Fridays at 5 p.m. How would that change the company? How would productivity be different? What would engagement levels be like? What would happen in the various departments, say like sales? So here's the cool thing. We have data that answers all of these questions. We have data that tells us what's different in a happy company and how happiness affects all of the various parts of an organization. When employees are happy, productivity increases. Happy people work harder. When employees are happy, task accuracy increases. Happy people take pride in their work. When employees are happy, profitability increases. Happy people believe in the purpose of the organization and they drive it forward. And happy people sell more, a lot more. So what could your company do with a 37% increase in sales? Herb Kelleher founded Southwest Airlines in 1967, and he was the CEO for over 30 years. His vision for the company was simple. Employees come first because happy employees do better work. Better work makes the customers happy because they get great service. And that makes the stakeholders happy because the customers keep coming back and the company makes more money. Southwest has been the only major airline in the world to have turned a profit every year since the 70s. Even now, as the entire travel industry is struggling with the pandemic, Southwest has continued to fare better than all the other major airlines. Why? They're committed, focused to their employees. The vision that employee happiness is job number one. Happy employees do better work. Better work creates happier customers. Happier customers create more profit for the company, which in turn creates happier stakeholders. The strength of the Southwest Airlines vision is carrying them through this crisis, and their customers and the industry continue to recognize just how powerful this focus on employee happiness truly is. So what is happiness? How do you define it? For a lot of people, happiness feels like this fluffy concept that's hard to really wrap your head around and understand. And if you're feeling that way, you are not alone. So I'm currently writing my next book, and I've been interviewing experts from all over the world, and it's fascinating. Now, these are people who spend all of their working hours researching, studying, understanding the science behind happiness. And in the interviews, I always ask every one of them this question: how do you define happiness? And this group of incredibly intelligent global researchers do not agree on the definition of happiness. They each give a different answer to that seemingly simple question. So if you feel like you don't quite understand it, you're in good company. But I do want to share a definition of happiness that we can use for our purposes today. Because when I'm talking about happiness, I'm not talking about the fleeting types of externally produced happiness that we all experience. So that feeling you get when something good happens to you. For example, you play with a puppy and you feel happy, or you have a great meal at your favorite restaurant and you feel happy. Now, those fleeting moments of externally produced happiness are absolutely important for our well-being, and I'm not dismissing their value. But for today, we're talking about the happiness that you create within yourself and then within your organization. So Sonia Lyubomirsky is a professor at the University of California. She spent almost all of her career studying happiness and is considered one of the world's leading experts in happiness research. So we're going to start with her definition of personal happiness, and I'd like to read it to you. Happiness is the experience of joy, contentment, or positive well-being combined with a sense that one's life is good, meaningful, and worthwhile. Now, this is a great definition for personal happiness, but what does it mean in an organizational setting? How does that definition apply systemically? So we can use Dr. Lyubomirsky's personal definition to create a systemic organizational definition of happiness this way. Happiness in its most basic form, it feels good, it's pleasant, we enjoy it. A strong signal that an organization is happy is you can observe it. You can easily see that people are happy, they enjoy their work. Now, there are a lot of things that organizations leaders can do to create systemic happiness. And one of the key factors in all of those tactics is communication. Constant communication about the vision of the organization, the importance of employee happiness, the character of the organization. These are the stories that need to get told to shape a company's culture around happiness. We're all driven by some purpose. Every person wants to feel as though they are part of something bigger and more important than just their daily tasks of life. Organizations are happy when employees not only understand the bigger purpose behind their work, but they also truly believe in it. So our definition of organizational happiness for today is: a happy organization is one where people feel good about themselves and their work. Leadership communicates and rewards positive cultural behavior, and all employees believe their work has purpose and meaning beyond the bottom line. Okay, great. So how in the world do we achieve organizational happiness? How do we create systemic happiness in our companies? You might be asking, like, where would I even start? So there are 3 things you can do to immediately start leading your organization in a happier direction. We're going to use the acronym MAT, M-A-T, to identify these 3 things. So think of it like a welcome mat. Welcome to a happier organization. So the M stands for measure the data. You measure everything in your company because it's important to know what's working and what's not. And happiness is no different. But this step of measuring happiness is typically a huge block for an organization. It tends to trip up even the most seasoned of leaders, because how do you measure happiness? Like, what's that even look like? So maybe you do an annual engagement survey, or maybe you just go with your gut feeling about how everyone's doing. The problem with annual surveys is they're only once a year. And as we've seen in 2020, a lot can change over the course of a year. And your gut feeling, your intuition, it's important and it's valuable, but actual data will give you the complete, unbiased picture. You need access to objective data that shows you how your people are doing. You need to be able to quickly and clearly see the emotional health and happiness of your people. You need data that can be segmented so you can track patterns in teams or across departments. So fortunately, we have the technology to do this. So 2 of my favorite tools out there for this are Friday Pulse and Heart Count. Now, they're not identical tools, but they have some key similarities. Both are based on the foundational idea of a simple weekly automated check-in with all of your employees, and both provide dashboards so you can see at a glance how every person, team, department, the whole organization is doing. So the actual tracking of data, the measuring of the data, it's not that hard. We have the tools to make it pretty simple. But here's a caveat. Don't measure the data. Don't track the happiness of your employees unless you're going to do something with that data. If you're not going to take action on the results, don't measure anything. Getting input from your employees and then ignoring that input will create unhappiness. And that's the opposite direction of where we want to go. So once you have the data, you need to take action on it. And like the measurement, taking action doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be a new fancy program or some involved system for improving things. At the baseline foundational level, you can simply use those results as conversation starters. So during a weekly huddle, a manager can say to the team something like, hey, our team's happiness level took a dip last week. Let's talk about why that is and if there's anything we can address. You know, maybe team members had unclear instructions on a new project and they were frustrated, or maybe there was an unhappy customer that made everybody's jobs miserable. There will often be things that you can address to increase your team's happiness. But there might be things that you cannot address. So if someone has a crisis happening at home, a death from COVID, or they're struggling with their teenager, or their spouse lost their job, there are a lot of factors that affect us emotionally, especially right now. And those are showing up at work. But simply communicating and asking the questions, that opens the door for your people to know they're being heard. They know the organization values them, which in turn helps them to be their best selves at work, which ultimately makes them happier. So measure the data, get objective information on how happy your people are, and then make sure you're taking some sort of ongoing action with those results. The A is allow time, and time abundance is the new rich. feeling like we have free time or even just enough time to get everything done, that is one of the keys to creating happiness. Now, sometimes a team or an entire organization can be under a tight deadline, and having an abundance of time, that's just not possible. But if that's the regular expectation, if your employees are constantly working against the clock, you're going to have unhappy, burned out employees and probably a high turnover rate that's costing the organization a lot of money. The fact of the matter is also, we're just not our best selves when we're time stressed. So there's a famous study by Barley and Datsun, completed in 1973, but still relevant today. So in this study, seminary students were presented with a staged Good Samaritan scenario. Now, the Good Samaritan is the story of an injured man left for dead on the side of the road. In the story, people who thought they were too important or too busy, they passed by the injured man, did not help. The person who finally stopped and helped is called the Good Samaritan, thus the name for the story. And this is a story any seminary student would be very familiar with. So in the study, each student was told they needed to give a talk about the Good Samaritan story. And they were told they were either late and they had to hurry to get to the place where they would be speaking, or they had plenty of time to get there. On their way, the students encountered this staged scenario with a man literally slumped in a doorway. He was coughing and moaning in obvious distress. It was very clear he needed medical attention and help. So did the students stop to help? Did they take the role of the Good Samaritan, the story they were on their way to talk about? The researchers found only 10% of the students in the hurry group stopped to help the man, as opposed to 63% in the group that was told they had plenty of time. Some of the students literally stepped over the man on their way to the next building. Now, that group of seminary students who didn't stop, they felt terrible about not stopping to help. It wasn't that they didn't care. They felt like they didn't have the time. When we feel like we don't have enough time, we are much less likely to act in accordance with our values. Your employees, for the most part, they want to do their best work. They care about their work, but when they feel time stressed, they're not going to be their best selves. They're just going to get the job done, but not necessarily to the best of their abilities. So remember the stat earlier about the accuracy of tasks? Happy employees are 19% more accurate at their tasks. Allowing time, giving people an abundance of time, helps them to do their best work and to bring their prime skills and values to their work. When you allow time, it creates space for your people to be happier. T is tell the stories. How is company culture communicated? It's through the stories that get told. And here's the thing, stories are being told. Your organization's culture is being shaped every single day, even right now in this moment. And if you are not actively telling the right stories, you're missing a huge opportunity to move the company to a happier place. As humans, we are naturally biased toward the negative. We share negative news much more easily than we share positive news and stories. That's just how we're wired. But as a leader, you have to intentionally tell those stories that shape the narrative you want for the organization, the stories that push the company in the direction of happiness. And you have plenty of those stories, but most of them will not circulate without intention. The bad stories are just going to spread themselves, but the good stories are going to stay in the background if they're not actively, intentionally told. You want to tell the stories that show how your company demonstrates its values. You want to tell the stories that praise your employees. You want to tell the stories that reinforce your vision, because aligning with the vision is part of increasing systemic happiness. Alex Karuf is the founder and former CEO of Woohoo Inc. It's the Danish company that created Heart Count, one of the measurement tools we talked about earlier. He shared this story with me in an interview. So a friend of his is the HR manager of another company in Denmark, and one of their company values is respect. Now, an employee, not of Danish origin, had been with a client and was treated very badly. The client had been openly racist toward him. And when the employee got back to the office, he went to Alex's friend, the HR manager, and told him what had happened. The HR manager takes it to the CEO. And the CEO, what does he do? He calls the client and fires them, terminates the contract on the spot. He says, this is not how we treat people. We treat people with respect, and we expect the same from our clients. Your contract with us is canceled. Click. Instead of the organization simply having a sign on the wall, respect is one of our core values, and then expecting people to know and believe it, the value was actively engaged, and they told that story throughout the company. They aligned their company value with a story of actually implementing that value. Can you imagine being an employee at that company and hearing that story? Those employees have a new example, a narrative that provides concrete evidence of how the company respects and values them. They can now reference that story as an example of how the organization truly aligns with their values and puts their employees first. That's how an organization creates happiness and builds a place where people want to stay and work hard because leadership is telling the stories of their purpose and their value. Southwest Airlines has imbued every part of their company culture with a focus on happiness. Happiness of their employees, their customers, and their stakeholders. Beyond the impact on the bottom line, there are thousands of stories demonstrating the power of this focus on employee happiness. One of my favorites of their stories is from 2011. So a grandmother called Southwest Airlines to arrange a flight for her husband. She explained what was going on to the ticketing agent, and the agent struggled with tears throughout the whole transaction. You see, the grandfather was traveling to Denver for the most tragic reason imaginable. His 3-year-old grandson had been murdered. The woman explained she was the step-grandma, so it was much more important that the grandfather get there in time to be with his daughter when her child, his grandchild, was taken off life support at 9 p.m. that night. The grandfather gets to LAX 2 hours early, just like you're supposed to, but the lines were endlessly long. He's on the verge of tears and trying to explain the situation and get assistance from TSA so he can get to his plane on time. But it's TSA. No one would listen. Nobody cared. Finally, he gets through security. He grabs his shoes and belt out of the bin and runs to the gate in his stocking feet. He knew he was too late. He knew he had missed his flight. He knew he wasn't going to make it in time to be with his daughter on that most important night. But when he got to the gate, the pilot of his plane was standing there, and upon seeing the grandfather running toward him, said, "Are you Mark? We held the plane for you. We're so sorry about the loss of your grandson." As he walked down the jetway with the pilot, the grandfather said, "I cannot thank you enough for this." And the pilot responded, "They can't go anywhere without me, and I wasn't going anywhere without you. Now relax, we'll get you there. And again, I'm so sorry." Now, plane delays can get really expensive for an airline, right? So how did Southwest respond when they learned what the pilot had done and had intentionally delayed the flight? Their spokeswoman said this: "I think we would all agree that the pilot absolutely made the right decision. I don't think you could ask for a better example of great service for our customers." When you intentionally create a culture of happiness, when you hold up employee happiness as a core component of your organization, when you make daily decisions to increase systemic happiness, you will see incredible benefits in every part of your organization. Thank you.
Wow, Amy, that was good. Any questions? If you are on mute, just unmute yourself, or you can also hold your space bar down to talk. I didn't see anything in the chat.
Hey, Aimee, can you do, are there the Friday Pulse or Heart Count or whatever, are there like minimal accounts that you can set up for your people to have a questionnaire go out, or how does that work?
So they start with a sort of questionnaire survey, so you get a baseline measurement for the organization, and then they both send a weekly email on Fridays with 3 questions that everybody answers to continue to measure. And I believe both of them are offering free trials right now. I don't remember how long each one is. One is 3 months and one is, I think they're both about 3 months. But I can send you, if you want, I can send you more information about that.
Yes, thanks.
Oh, someone asked, can you separate the questions into departments? You can separate, the one has a little better segmenting than the other, but you can design your own questions. They have recommended questions, but you can work with them to create the questions that make the most sense for you. And you can absolutely segment everything by departments. So you can compare how this department's doing versus this department. And it's very, very helpful.
And so do you think something like this, like that, is probably the best way to go about it in this type of environment? Or, you know, instead of used to do Friday get-togethers, things like that with employees, and you can't really do that now. So.
Right. It's especially because right now we all have these communication difficulties with remote work, and some people are back in and some people are still out. And I just saw a survey that said 97% of CEOs across the US all say they're going to continue some form of remote work even after the pandemic. So we absolutely have to figure out new ways to communicate with one another. And both of these are great tools to increase that communication. It just gives you another avenue of ways that people can communicate with one another, because they both also have where you answer the 3 questions, they're multiple choice, and then they also have places where you can add more information. Like you can say, yeah, I had a terrible week, my dog died, or, you know, I had a great week, I got praise from this particular client who's been a pain in our butt the whole time, or whatever. So it just provides another opportunity for that communication.
All right. Well, Aimee, people have other questions afterwards. I'm sure they'll figure out how they contact you either through Club Runner, or unless you want to share an email address or something right now for those that might not have it already.
Yeah, here, I'll throw my email address into the chat.
All right. Excellent. Okay. Well, thanks, Aimee. That was a great presentation. Appreciate it. As Fitz mentioned, the board is going to be meeting tomorrow. We are going to be discussing, among other things, the Christmas party scheduled for December 21st. As soon as we get some more information about that, I'll send it out. Probably get an email out either through myself or through Rita or Ann this week, depending on how that goes tomorrow. Look for updates from Joe on the Salvation Army bell ringing, and then next week, hopefully we'll have some good results from the special needs Christmas party. Mr. Ayers, did you or your guest want to say anything to the club? I noticed you had a guest at the meeting today.
Elvis is having a blue Christmas.
All right. Thank you. Elizabeth, I see you were on with us today. Any announcements for the excitement going on with the symphony? Anything coming up? I think we didn't you just have a concert this past weekend, or was that last weekend?
Well, no, we had a concert 2 weeks ago, so the 28th of November, and we have another one coming up on Saturday. This is our Bells, Brass, and Bows concert, and it will be either at the Vandal Drive-In Theater on Saturday evening at 6 p.m., or you can stream it at your home anytime starting Saturday, 6 p.m., and it will be available once you access it for 48 hours, but you can access it anytime between now and the end of the year, December 31st. So.
And how do you get tickets for that?
just go to our website, limasymphony.com, and click on the performance, and it'll take you straight to the place. You can buy either, the same ticket will work for either the drive-in or as a streaming code.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. And
Thank
thanks
you.
for joining us today. All right. Well, somewhat informal. We got 20 minutes, so I'm not going to sit here for 20 minutes. But does anybody else have anything else they'd like to share with the club? Any questions? Any comments? Keep it nice, Andy. But anybody have anything else? All right. Well then,
The governor at 2 o'clock can be seen on our Facebook page or our website. We stream it live to see what he has to say today. We don't know.
all right. Thanks, Fitz. I'll be listening. Cool. All right. Well, everybody have a great week. Thanks for showing up today. Again, comments are always welcome. Connect with me offline, either email or phone. If you want to see something different, something new, something better. Everybody have a good week. Bye.